Hey, everybody, this is Rory McDonald from MacDon and Associates coming to you with the next episode of Tuesdays with Rory. I have a special guest in the studio. This is my high school football coach, Mr. Scott Merchant over at Chippewa Valley High School. Super pumped to have you here, man. Good to catch up, too. We haven't done this in a while, and have you here talking through the importance of team, the importance of competition, and the importance of an atmosphere to really generate more leaders and more than anything, win as a group. So without further ado.
Well, it's always nice to be invited by a former captain of mine. So it's cool to see what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me. So yeah. So I've been in coaching 30 years now. I started out in college and, I enjoyed that. It was great. Tough lifestyle, and just felt like I could make a bigger impact on young people working with them in a high school setting than in the college setting. They're more, kind of a finished product by the time they get to college than they are in high school. So, went back to school and got my counseling degree. So I'm also a school counselor, and, I've been doing that ever since. So it's, I think this is going to be year 15 for me at Chippewa. I think it'll be 24 overall as a head coach. And then I've been in coaching altogether. This will be my 31st year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were, just so I remember too, you coached at, was it Albion?
Yeah.
I don't want to get Albion and Adrian mixed
right.
up.
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't say those A schools. Don't do that.
So
there's 3 of them. They're all different.
Yeah. So you're at Albion for a while as a coach there. And then you were at, was it Brother Rice next, or was it next U of D?
Yeah, I was at U of D. So I went from Albion as an assistant, went to U of D as a head coach. Went over to Brother Rice for a couple of years as I finished going to school to get my master's in counseling. And then, Chippewa. So,
yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. So it's funny. We were reminiscing a little bit, like the thinking back to my school career, and some of the guys who were part of my class or know what I'm talking about. But we had 3 different head coaches throughout all of high school, which made it interesting. Although if we had the same head coach, if you were there all 4 years, you probably won your first state championship. But I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. But how's the team looking this year?
Good. Yeah, we got a nice group coming back. We have a number of kids that are, second, third year starters for us coming back. So, the thing about football is it's numbers. You got to have numbers. You got to have a lot of kids that can contribute in different ways. And then, making all the pieces fit right and work together. Yeah. And that's like what I love about coaching football is, a kid could just based on their skill set be able to help you just rush the passer, say, for example. And then that's our job as coaches to find a way to take advantage of that. We're coming together. It's been a good off season. Guys are working at it, and looking forward to getting into the summer here and starting to get after it.
Yeah. Some warmth too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So one of the things that I really was excited to get into with you was specifically revolving around creating a team, because you're very modest in your conversation around this, but Coach Merchant here is you're in the Michigan High School Hall of Fame, correct?
Football coach
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Coached the team to a state championship in 2018. We're part of a national championship at Albion. And you've had kids like me who are little punks that just work down the street from you now. You've had kids who are now in the NFL. You've had Division I athletes, Division II athletes, Division III athletes. You've had coaches that have gone on to coach other schools to state championships. Like, your ability to take a team, put it together, have it mesh well in such a way to where it is successful by your definition of success as a head coach has been, I mean, I don't want to say foolproof because I know there's bumps along the way, right? But your ability to do that has come out. People see it in the community. People see it at Chippewa Valley. So my question for you coming into that is, like, when it comes to creating a team, when it comes to putting the pieces in place and making sure that kid who is a pass rusher is there's something written up for him specifically. And on that play, you're putting him in the best position to do his job. What does that look like as a head coach? Like, what's led to you understanding that? What's led to you being in that kind of position to really know, okay, where do we need to turn things up? Where do we need to turn things down in order to make sure the team is operating at full capacity?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, like, there's no set formula, and every week is different. Every year is different. There's certain weeks where, you got to turn the intensity up. And then there's other weeks where, like, you got to downplay it, and you got to chill out a little bit because you've got 5 days till you play the game. And
yeah.
So I think everything begins with people. I've been really fortunate to be around, like, some amazing coaches. I played for amazing coaches. I've had, like, great teammates, and I've had great families and kids that I've been able to coach. So, everything starts with people. So, like, when I look for a good coach, I'm looking for a good person. Like, that's where it starts. You can always teach whatever it is, real estate, stock, education, X's and O's in football, but, like, are they good people? And are they invested for the right reasons? Is it about them, or is it about the kids? And I think when you start, like, that's your starting point, and then that's how you build your staff, and then that's how your staff interacts with kids. I think that's important right there. It's not just about winning any way you can win. It's about, all right, how can we use football to develop these young people as student athletes, as human beings, to be better than if they didn't play? And ultimately, like, that's what, we look for. So, like, seeing you be a successful business person, married with 3 kids, like, that's awesome. Like, that's the best part of my job, is seeing, like, the finished product after 10 years. Because when you're in high school, I'm not going to lie to you, as a coach, you're like, I mean, is this guy, like, getting anything that, do they understand what we're trying to talk about?
This kid
here?
will amount to nothing.
No, I don't, you don't think that?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Is anything I'm saying making any kind of impact whatsoever? And like, in the people business, like, results are not immediate, right?
Sure.
So, but in terms of building a team, I, as a head coach, my head coach in high school, who was Al Fracassa, who's, probably the most famous high school coach in Michigan. He taught me, like, you don't ask people to do things you're not going to do yourself.
Right.
So, I'm not going to have my coaches doing things that I'm not. I mean, I'll sweep up the locker room floor. I'll tape kids. I'll get the water. We're all the same, man. Like, nobody is bigger than the program, whether that's me as the head coach or our star player, because football is not an individual sport, and you can't be successful without lots of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing, is that everybody has a role, and everybody has to know their role and embrace it.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do, especially with teenagers. And, you may want to be the quarterback, but you know what? Like, you're my best center. And if I put the quarterback at center, like, you're never going to get a pass off anyways, because he's going to run right through him.
Sure.
And kind of getting people to understand, like, this is how you can positively impact our team, whatever that may be, whether that's a scout team player, as that pass rusher, as a receiver, as just a tough kid who will go block somebody as a fullback. But as a coach and as a staff, it's our job to identify, and just like a boss to their employees, what are the strengths of our players, and how can we best utilize those to make us the best team possible? So I think one of the things you have to do if you want to be a successful leader is, like, you have to be able to identify talent, and then you have to be able to figure out how to use that talent. And then ultimately, how to put that all together to get the most successful product you can out there on the field. For me, I think if you utilize your people and you get more people involved and you're honest with them and you have, a relationship with them, then we're going to be successful. We're going to be able to understand one another. I'm going to know what you need. You're going to know what I need. And while we may not always agree, we're going to respect each other. And then we're going to figure out how we can both be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's huge. And it relates so much to business. That's one of the things that I've like specifically when it comes to bringing on real estate agents, or in my business partner's case, when it comes to the insurance side of things, like so the guys here who work here on the insurance side, one was a Michigan State hockey player. The other one was a football, baseball, like all up in Marysville. And then he hired another hockey guy. Like the equation, or I don't know how it equates so well from sports to business. Like the competition still exists. Nothing changes as far as that goes, but like it so much so equates, like the whole do your job aspect. You know what I mean? Like you have one job. This is your job. Just do that. Don't worry about what he's doing in the office next door to you. Don't worry about what she's doing down the road, showing houses, whatever it means. Like, here's your job. Here's what you do. And that's huge in our world to be able to be successful. So football, what I've learned on the football field has equated a lot to business in that sense. One of the other things that you said was like revolving around the speed of the leader too. You know what I mean? Like reality, we were talking before we jumped on the cameras, but like the top down leadership versus the bottom up leadership, and what's the difference between the two, and how does that get into that a little bit if you can?
Well, I think the best organizations are, run by the players or the employees, those that are going to take stock and pride in that organization, and they have some say in what's going on. So, as I've matured or gotten older, and every group's different, but like this is your year, and every year we have a group of seniors, and, what do you want your story to be? And what do you want your motto to be? And, I try to give them as much input as they want to give. Some want to give a lot. Some don't really want to go there. But for me, the best teams that I've ever had are player-driven teams.
Yeah.
And they handle their business. They're focused. They know what their goals are. And then they handle that stuff.
Yeah.
And then, I can just concentrate on the other details that they don't need to worry about. But basically, I give them what they need to be successful, and then they run with it.
Mm-hmm.
If I have to be the one, nitpicking every little thing and not, enforcing standards for everybody instead of the players enforcing those standards, it gets old. They get tired of hearing me. I get tired of saying it.
Yeah.
And I just don't think you get the buy-in from the entire group in that scenario. And when you don't, I don't think you achieve what you're capable of achieving. You may still have success, but I don't think you're going to be as efficient or as productive as you could have been.
Right. No, that makes a ton. So one of the things that when I was coaching a lot of new real estate agents coming in is like, they would get, here's my goal. Here's what I want to make, for example, or here's how many houses or families that I want to help. And what would often happen is like halfway through the year, 6 months comes in and they're not even close to their goal. Right. And I'm like, hey, here's the things that need to happen in order for you to get to this. And there's so much pushback at that point that it's like, okay, it almost seems like I want this more than you do. And especially in a world like football, there's another guy right behind you. You know what I mean? Like it's right. Reality is this, there's not even a need for you to get out of the way anymore. There's already somebody there to take your spot. I wish that existed more in business.
Well, I think something you said right there is huge. Like you can't just look at the end goal. Like to me, like what we're trying to do is process driven. There are day-to-day things that you have to do that will equate to success. And if you do those little things right, those little things lead to big results. But in my experience, if you just want to focus on the game and you don't want to practice and you don't want to work out and you don't want to, stem your route right, or you don't want to use that pass rush move that we worked on, then you think you're just going to do that in a game. It doesn't happen. Just same thing. I want to sell 50 houses. Well, the way you sell 50 houses is day to day, doing what you need to do as well as you can. And then those things come out of that. So like, to me, winning is a byproduct. However you want to determine winning or define that, winning's a byproduct of doing little things right on a consistent basis. And if you do that and you grind every day and, you chop and you chop and you chop, then eventually like you're going to see the results you want. But if you just focus on the results, I think you get lost along the way a lot of times. And I think that's a trap for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like a lot of what it is that you do is, you talked about the process, and it's like, it's a step-by-step thing. Okay. You've gone from A, now it's time for B. Don't focus on Z. The next thing is C, like going through that. But then there's also reality is if you've got 75 kids just in the varsity, right? Like how many kids are on the football team on any given year? 200 kids, 150?
Yeah, somewhere like 160, 170.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got this huge group of kids. All of them are testosterone driven junkies, right? Like just ready to come out and hit somebody. But there's a sense of like, okay, there's an atmosphere that needs to be created here to where there's room for you to be, to let out what you need to let out on the football field, but also in a healthy way around your teammates too, right? Like some guys are so competitively driven that they drive other people away.
Right.
But how's that, like being able to use competition as a means of increasing morale, increasing growth, if you will, within the team, but also like using that to develop the atmosphere of really raising men.
Right. So we start in the off season, like we draft teams for the weight room. Yeah. And it's a player draft. Like the coaches do not pick the players pick the players. And we try to identify, 10 to 12 rising seniors that we feel could be potential leaders or need to be potential leaders. And we want to see what they do from January until June. I don't want to find out if a kid's not a leader in the middle of, the Romeo game. Like I don't need to find that out then. I need to find it out now. So, we draft based on, being a good teammate is what we're looking for. Like, do they come to school? Are they on time? Do they try hard? Are they working hard? Do they have good effort? Are they a good teammate? All those things that are like, not God-given ability. Like it's just anybody can do those things. Mm-hmm. And, it's really interesting to see who gets drafted in what round because it's the players picking it, and then sometimes there's some hurt feelings because people think they should have been drafted higher or whatever it may be. So sometimes that's, a great wake-up call to them, and then they want to prove people wrong. And then we compete, every week in everything we do. We keep track of, lifts. We keep track of, we have a formula we put in when we test them, and it tells us, we call it our like there's a bomb squad, and you're a bomb, you're a firecracker, you're a water gun, like basically like where do you fall on this versus your teammates? And it's all numbers. You can't dispute it. Like it's all there for you. And then what do you want to do with that? So we're not looking for, okay, you got to do this much or whatever. It's okay. Did you improve? Did you get better? Were you here? Is the effort there? Because if you do those things, then you have a chance to be successful. And then, in practice, competition is important. We have a challenge period every day in practice. Like it might be, okay, you got 3 plays from the 2-yard line to score. Who's going to win? Because somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. And then, whoever loses, there's going to be repercussions for that.
Yeah.
Or, hey, it's 3rd and 10. you gotta convert 2 of those 3rd and 10s or you lose. So competition and conditioning, like don't just run to run. Like what are you trying to get at in there? So, we try to do that all off season and then in practice as well. So then when our guys get into, a high pressure situation on Friday nights, they've been competing for 9 months by the time it comes there. So, but competition, you find out about yourself, which is why, like we love having a very difficult opening game, because whatever happens, win or lose, we're going to find out more about our team being in that situation than we would be if we had an easy opening game. Because by playing a quality opponent that early, you're going to find out a lot about your team. Okay. And you're going to figure out what adjustments you have to make, win or lose, which to me, that sets you up to be more successful later in the year, as opposed to getting a false sense of security. You beat an inferior opponent. You're not really tested. You don't really know what you have after one game. And then all of a sudden you get thrown in the MAC red and now it's a different ball game. So I just think competition, healthy competition, not like me versus you, but like, let's see how good we can be. Let's push each other. And you know what? Like, I'm going to be happy for you if you're successful, and you're going to be happy for me if I'm successful. That's the key. It's got to be positive. It can't be, a negative thing or thrown into people's faces, or, like you said, it can create problems if you don't harness that. Yeah,
no, I can get that for sure. You mentioned the MAC red, which for those of you who don't know, MAC red is the Macomb area conference. Red is the really the tip of the top. Like it's
the highest division.
Yeah, it's the highest division in Macomb County, and I'd be one sitting at this table who I'm sure you're on the same page with me. In my opinion, it's the best division in football when it comes to the state of Michigan. Always great teams coming out of it. Always Division I athletes in every school, it seems like. And really beating up on the Catholic League in the last couple of years. So that's been fun. There's a couple De La Salle families that we're associated with here.
We
in the
haven't
office,
had a chance to play them yet, but yeah. I mean, there's been St. Mary's, Brother Rice, Catholic Central have all played different teams in our conference, and conference has held up pretty well.
Yeah, which is good. And that being said, I wanted to ask you too before we kind of wrap this up, but you're having the option between these two different opportunities, right? And there's a heart behind this, and I'll get to it in a minute, but like you have the ability, if you wanted to, as a head coach at Chippewa Valley, to make your first game easy. You know what's coming ahead. You have the Eisenhower. You have Dakota down the road. You have Romeo. The schedule ahead, and those 4 games that are going to be rough. Or is it 4 games or 5 games? Five games. Those 5 games that are going to be hard. Why not add these 4 other ones? Why not make those easier? Why not open up the season and make it more simple? What's the heart behind that? Why take the hardest road?
Well, I think, like I said, like you want to test yourself early and find out what you're made of and find out what you've got, not only as a, in terms of players, but coaching staff, like the whole thing. I would say when I first started, our first game competition, it's gotten progressively harder every year. So, we're not at a point now where we're going to find anybody easy to play. And I don't really think anybody in the MAC Red can find anybody easy to play week 1, because people know our conference. People know these are good teams. They've all either won state titles or competed for state titles. So that's not much of an option anymore.
Yeah.
But obviously there's different levels of really good teams you can play. So for us, when you have an opportunity to play a traditional power or a team that's, really successful for the last 10 years, I think that does 2 things. One, like I said, it sets you up for the rest of the year and allows you to make adjustments as a coach and as a team. But also something that's kind of lost is that's your motivation in the off season. When you've got that big game coming up week 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first game. And like for us, we only talk about one game at a time. And I know that's cliche, but the way you get beat is by not focusing on the task at hand and thinking about week 2, week 3 down the road when, you're not playing those teams for 2 or 3 weeks. So I think it drives our guys, it drives our coaches, because we have to prepare all offseason for that huge opponent in week 1. And again, we want to go out, we want to perform well. And if you don't have that great opener, and it's just kind of like a ho-hum game and your kids aren't excited to play it, I don't think they train the same way in the off season.
Sure.
Because whatever, like that team's 500, that's no big deal. I don't need to push myself. I think you get into a slippery slope with that. So to me, I'd rather play a really, really good team and lose possibly. And a lot of times, just like in business, like when we make mistakes or, we don't win, we find out more about ourselves and who we are as an organization than if we have an easy win.
Yeah.
And I've probably learned more in losses than I have in the wins we've had in my career.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it exposes things and then it forces you to reconsider. What are you going to do? How are you going to change? How are you going to adapt? What was the issue, or is there no issue? Maybe the other team was just better that day. And sometimes that happens too. And, so you got to know when you got to go after your organization for, lack of performance, lack of effort. And then there's other times, they give it everything they have and it just wasn't your night.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in that as long as you made the effort. So that's why we do that in the opener. And I think it sets kind of the tone for the whole season, including the off season.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. I love it. We're getting close to the end here. Either way, man, I'm super thankful to have you in the office today, be a part of the podcast. For anybody out there, if you're a local business, I wanted to bring this up to you guys. There are sponsorships that exist within Chippewa Valley explain that a little bit, the banner and all that.
Sure. Yeah. We've got a lot of different opportunities. So we've got a beautiful game program that we do every week. It's unique every week. We've got space in that we sell. We also have a football yearbook that we give out at the end of the season to all of our players, our varsity players. And, that's another way to get your name out there with families in the area. We also do stadium sign well. So, you get a vinyl sign put up in the stadium and, you have 5,000 or 6,000 people checking it out every week. So yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities. If anybody's interested, you can contact me at the high school and would love to talk to you about that.
Yeah. Through your email up there for people to reach out. So if you're interested in sponsoring the Chippewa Valley High School football team, you can send an email to that email that you see scrolling across the screen and have a conversation with Coach Merchant, Hall of Fame Coach Merchant. No, but seriously,
means
man.
I'm old, man. That's all it means. That's what the first thing. So when they called me, I thought it was one of my buddies messing with me, one of my coaching friends. And I might have cursed at him. I don't know. But,
yeah.
And then they're like, no, this is so-and-so from the Michigan High School Football Coaches Association. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm sorry. Like I thought somebody was playing a joke on me. And I go, I'm officially old if I'm going into a Hall of Fame. So that's what that means. I've coached a long time and I've had a lot of good players and, good players make good coaches. I can tell you that.
Sure.
So you were one of those guys. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming in today, being a part of this too. And hopefully become a face that comes on here again. That'd be cool.
Well, I just have a face for radio, so we might have to cut that out. So
we'll throw it on Spotify. That's what we'll do. But no, seriously, thank you so much for being a part of this. And thank you guys for tuning in today's episode of Tuesdays with Rory. Super thankful for you all. Besides that, you guys have a blessed